right, we are live. Good morning, everyone. I don't know where everyone else is, but I got Ariel here, so thanks for being on time. So, welcome back.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, super excited about today's topic.
Yeah, so today, our main topic is going to be kind of like what is the five is that? Hold on, I'm hearing five investor mistakes or mistakes in the beginning of their journey that a lot of newbies make and how maybe they can avoid them. So, how long have you been investing for?
I've been investing for 5 years now. Yeah.
Oh, about the same timeline as me. So, I people might know my story. I've made quite a bit of mistakes in my beginning of my journey. So, what about you? Has it been smooth sailing for you?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, so my first deal was a house hack in New Jersey. And one of the things that I didn't realize, and it probably wasn't one of the books I read, but I just didn't note it down, was that property taxes go up upon a sale. So I did all my cash flow numbers. I saw I was going to make $500 a month. I'm like, this is great. Like, you know, right in line of what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden, the property taxes go up from 5K to like almost 9K, which is a huge detriment to cash flow. Luckily, rents kind of increased during that time period as well, as like that was like the climb of rents in 2019 and 2020. So it kind of outweighed. And then at the end of the day, I ended up cash flowing like $300 a month. But property taxes, that's one that you need to be aware of and put into your initial underwriting for a deal.
Yeah, it's always those kind of hidden extra things, right? A lot of people, you run your numbers on, the down payment, the closing cost, what the rent's going to be. So that's the basic formula, and then it's like other things that pop up. Like you mentioned property taxes, and even for me, it's related to property taxes, but it's more like the transfer title fees. So
Okay.
like if you put it in, some people put it in their name initially, and then they want to transfer it to an LLC after and whatnot, and they don't realize they still have to pay transfer title fees a lot of times. And I invest in Pennsylvania, so of all places, it has like one of the highest transfer title fees out there. So that's something I didn't consider. So it's extra money out of my pocket if that's the route that I wanted to go. But yeah, there's so many things that people don't consider, when getting started. I think for me, I always go back to just kind of I know you're more like a data driven, so I think your mistakes are going to be from, or maybe that standpoint. I think mine is I'm like I always talk about it, where being in the firehouse, we kind of just figure things out, and I think that's where a lot of my mistakes have come from, where I've just jumped into things without really maybe having a better plan or course of action. So that would be my number one thing, is just really don't get ahead of yourself. Like that's I really got ahead of myself, and that's where it kind of slowed me down. But for me, that would be one of my biggest mistakes, is just realize that I think problems are going to happen no matter how easy it seems.
Yeah.
So just take your time and kind of it's kind of like just like building a house. You got to start with a good foundation and then build up. And then that would be my thing, is just really let yourself get seasoned a little bit before you really jump ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's going to be learning lessons. You could be as data driven as you like and try to research a lot of things. However, every house is different. And even though there are similarities between them, like for example, my first property was built in the 1910s. So usually properties that are older are going to have more work, even if they're renovated. There's still like, old structure there. But at the same time, that house is still different from the house next door. So it's okay as a newbie to recognize that, like, you know what, maybe I should just have a little bit extra reserves so I can encounter these issues and not feel overwhelmed. But it's okay when issues do arise.
Great point on reserves. So that's another dagger to me. Like having proper reserves is super important. And I think it's not only you probably want to go above what you're anticipating in the beginning, right? A lot of times, like I thought I had enough. And you mentioned having older homes also. So that plays into it, like you said, right? So you got to just expect that you're going to have a little more maintenance for these older homes. And, Pittsburgh does have a lot of older homes. But you mentioned you started with a house hack. So do you think that can help maybe overcome some of the mistakes in the beginning because you're not totally relying on a certain amount of cash flow in a sense, right? You're just trying to eliminate some of your expenses for rent and whatnot, or your living expenses. So does house hack kind of alleviate some of those mistakes you think in the beginning?
Oh, 100%. And in different ways. So, like you mentioned with cash reserves, you don't have to put possibly as much down as well as in your reserves, which helps with being able to save for the next deal. But also because you're living in the house, you kind of start to understand all the different niches about it and what could go wrong or what are some of the benefits. So, for myself, when I rented out that property a year later, I showed the property myself and I felt so confident showing each of the rooms, describing the property, describing the amenities because I had already lived in it. So going forward, when I purchased rental properties and did the same but never lived in them, I felt comfortable from that initial experience by doing a house hack.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you for finally joining us. I don't know if have you met Ariel yet?
Yes. Yeah, we've jumped on a live before, right, Ariel?
Uh, no, I think this is the first time actually. Well, nice to meet
Oh,
you, Matt.
really? Oh, dang.
Yeah, so Matt is the Mojo Mindset. He's on X and he has his own YouTube channel also. So go check him out. I put all you guys' links in the beginning. But yeah, Matt. So we're kind of talking about the biggest mistakes and 5 mistakes probably new investors make in the beginning of their journey. And I thought maybe you weren't going to hop on because you didn't have any mistakes or nothing to talk about.
Oh, dude,
So
Mark always coming in hot. You already know.
well,
That is far from the truth. Far from the truth.
okay. So where do you want to start today then?
Well, I think the first part of that is there's kind of like a process where you have to learn and educate yourself to be able to undertake, this wealth building journey through real estate. So for me, and kind of Ariel hit on it, was house hacking. So that's how I got started. And in the beginning, I had to learn how to analyze a deal, go out there, communicate with realtors, communicate with agents, communicate with property managers, even other investors and mentors that could kind of show me the ropes, right? Like I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Like most people, right? They're probably working a W-2 job. So that's what I was doing. And you're doing that full time. So you want to, maximize the time that you do have off by kind of streamlining and accelerating that learning curve. And that's kind of where mentors and coaches come in.
Hold on. Oh, sorry. We have Pedro Tavares stopping by from one of your guys' channels because it says paired. So thanks for stopping by. We got Ike Hobbs here. I did an interview with him recently, so he's a firefighter. He'll be coming out probably next week. But he has a great question. How much do you keep in reserves starting out? Percentage of the house cost, or is it a set amount?
Yeah, I could start off with that one. So I've read in books that most people try to have 10K in reserves. That's a lot for me, especially when I'm trying to scale and put money into other properties. So I'm a little bit more risky where I do like maybe 2 times the amount of rent. So say like 5K or so. But I haven't had any issues with that as of yet.
You don't seem risky. You just said you don't seem very risky though.
It's
Very
all
calculated, I
it's
bet.
always relative.
It's true.
I like
How
that.
about your
Um,
I think
thoughts?
that's a good amount. I think that's a great amount. So at first similar to you, I thought it's like kind of a set amount. And now looking back, I think 3 to 6 months of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is sort of like a minimum. I can sleep well at night for both Jess and I's kind of number. So I think we've taken that and run with it, and so we keep that in just a normal reserve account, right? We're not really so much interested in the yield for that cash that's staying idle versus sort of like it's good back on hand for those emergencies that may and will eventually come up. Will eventually come up. Like a new fence, like how to get a new fence in Florida. So that was another 1K just out the door for a tenant turnover. So having that wiggle room, I would say, sleep better at night, and these things do come up in the business. So.
Yeah, so for those of you that are tuning in and was expecting Kevin here, he won't be able to make it and he's having a landlord issue. So we're talking about reserves here. but he's actually not going to be able to make it on because he has a water heater issue going on right now. So,
Oh,
those are the kind of things that landlords have to deal with. So, talking about reserves, I definitely think it's something that kind of changes as your portfolio is scaling, right? So I think at a certain point there'll be a cutoff. Like like some people talk about maybe 10K per property, but at a certain point, you're probably going to have a cutoff of maybe 50K total. Because if you think about it, I mean, of course you don't want everything to happen at once, but typically, your biggest maybe expense might be like a 15K repair or something per major event. So I would say there'd be like a cutoff at 50K, or maybe at least have access to some additional funds if you did need it. But I would have one amount of 50K where I probably wouldn't touch at all. But for me, that was probably definitely my biggest mistake. I did have like 50K, but I had so many properties that I kind of brought online all at one time. So I think that's why it's also important to let things kind of get stabilized at first before you start scaling. So like I always talk about, the first few properties I had really tricked me. I really felt like they were super easy, hands off, and I just went all in. And so it definitely slowed me down. But that's somebody actually mentioned me in the school community, saying I kind of saved them a lot of money. Like my story or my journey, me always talking about my mistakes I made actually prevented them from going too quickly. They had access to a lot of funds, but hearing my story, they kind of slowed down and let themselves get settled in. So they always try to thank me for, even though he didn't know me at the time, he heard my story and he said I probably saved them a lot of money. So yeah, just telling our stories out there is super helpful, I think, to a lot of people. So all of you stopping by, thanks for always stopping by too and putting in all the comments and questions. So I love that. So anything, what would be maybe the next maybe mistake or thing you think new investors have to be aware of?
Yeah, I can mention one that's not quantitative, more qualitative is location.
Mhm.
So a property could look really good on paper, but you have to make sure, like maybe in a 2-mile radius, that that property still fits your criteria. So, for example, I try to invest or to have tenants that are working professionals, mostly to themselves. I find them to be pretty good and kind of similar to myself. So, for my first property in New Jersey, I saw that there was a car shop down the road. And I was like, "Oh, that's great. Convenience to be able to bring your car if like a flat tire comes in." Not so great because there's actually, 19-year-olds that are coming in, revving their cars, going fast in like a 20-mile street, miles per hour, and it just causes a lot of noise in the area. Also, I saw the property in wintertime and closed on it then. So there was no one walking around. Yet summertime came and there were people out in like their back porches blasting music. So these are all like the little things that like you can try to solve for somewhat by like walking around the property at different times of the day that you're looking for. And then also looking at businesses that are local and trying to assess like, would that business add a lot of foot traffic? Could there be a lot of high noise? Could it disturb someone who's working from home? And then from there, deciding if you want to move forward or not. But luckily for myself, that car business ended up closing down. So now it's back to a quiet street.
nice. I would say for location, one thing that I learned, again, kind of piggyback on not trying to reinvent the wheel, is in Pensacola and Florida in general, there's these supermarkets called Publix, which are pretty much like as religious as, I wouldn't say as religious as Bucky's in Texas, but
I've
they're,
never heard of either of those.
you haven't heard of either? Okay.
No.
Well, I want you to picture your local supermarket. But anyways, like it's a different type of clientele that I would say they've done their research picking where they want to open up a new location. So it sort of made sense when we looked at areas right along the highway on these new developing neighborhoods, new areas. Like it was also be like, oh shoot, there's actually going to be a Publix that's coming up at the corner of that, a corner of that intersection. And so it kind of gives you that kind of it reinforces your maybe research of saying, hey, this is on the population growth trend. This is where people are moving. This is where jobs are. And it's sort of a confirmation of like what your paper analysis does with what's actually in real life. So I think similar to that location, being able to walk, see the development, see the growth, it sort of reinforces maybe the research that you could do to just give you zip codes to start looking at, and then you want to dive in a little bit better. And so that helped out for us.
Yeah. So before we dig into the question Pedro has in the comments, talking about location, I think that's something that I did a very poor job of. Not so much, I mean, more like just the streets. Like I really got caught up in more just like the listing. You would see like the photos and kind of just the rent comps and whatnot. So you're like, oh, this property looks great. The pictures look great, this and that. But I didn't actually do a great job of understanding the streets or even just the parking on the streets or the parking situation, right? So some of the properties that I did get, like I said, they're base hits, they cash flow well. It's just there's some parking situation issues where, somebody like one of the property managers told me, oh yeah, I basically had to reverse out of the street. Like there's no place for me to turn around, and it's like, oh shit. So actually that's one I was looking to sell. Just he says it's gonna do well. It's just you're probably gonna have a lot of turnover, right? People are gonna get tired of constantly having to basically just reverse out of that street all the time. So that's a great point on location and just really understanding the streets that you're investing in. But Pedro has a great question. He says interest rates have been coming down and might drop more soon. How do you think that will impact the market? I bet Ariel has a great insight on this.
Yeah, I think it will open up the potential for more cash flowing deals. As of right now, there's not too much, to be honest, when you go on market. Like there are markets like Boise, Idaho, where there's practically like 0% of cash flowing deals. So that helps investors. But then the other end is still inventory. Like we need people to move out of their houses, so that, like, say those who are in a more like retired state, so that we have more inventory available for properties to purchase. I think if we can get interest rates down, also have more new construction, that could help. But we probably won't see anything impact us dramatically in the near term.
Yeah, I think, like you said, time is what is needed for lower rates for inventory to build up. That transaction between that move up buyer and the first time home buyer. I think what I was seeing in Florida too is like the home builders that are pivoting to appeal to smaller square footage, smaller bed bath counts. So, for example, in 2022, there was 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,500 square feet, and that was the range of the DR Horton. It was DR Horton development at the time. Now, when I look at Zillow, they are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet to maybe a 4.2, but the square footage tops off at like 1,500. So I think you're seeing that appeal to smaller square footage, smaller bed bath counts, smaller footprints to be able to fit in, because they already put contracts to get these plots of land to develop. So they're just kind of trying to put as much, I guess, bang for your buck. So the purchase price is coming down, obviously, but you're paying for much smaller square footage, much smaller inventory to help alleviate that. So definitely seeing that in the Florida markets, and I'm sure was it like San Antonio or markets in Texas where they're like less than 1,000 square feet, just row houses. So I feel like those developments will be more popular if interest rates are currently where they're at or trend down.
All right, what is Wawa and Sheets?
Dude, Mark, you got to get out more, man. You got to get out more, dude. For someone that is investing in Pittsburgh, you think you would be, familiar.
What are these places?
Dude, these are the cream of the crop gas stations, right? These are not just your run of the mill. They serve food.
Wait, I haven't. Ariel, have you heard of these? You haven't said you just laughing here.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
Wawa.
yeah, New Jersey, right? She's familiar.
New Jersey and Florida now.
Okay.
You can get a really good sub at Wawa.
Yeah.
I have no
idea.
Mark's
on island. He's on the island vibes.
I mean, even when I'm in North Carolina and stuff, I don't recall seeing any of these.
You've been to Cookout though, right? In North Carolina?
No.
You actually haven't been to North Carolina. I don't know what part of North Carolina you were visiting.
Western North Carolina.
Oh man.
But yeah, talking about another thing I think is super important is like rent comps or rent rates. And not, I think in the beginning, don't get so caught up in needing to get a certain amount because that's what the data has shown you or told you. I think a lot of people kind of worry what other people are going to think if they don't collect that rent that they expected. So I think for like maybe your first few properties, it's probably even better to go well below that, as long as you're cash flow positive. But give yourself, just get it filled with a quality tenant first, and it takes off a lot of pressure from yourself. I think that's super important because I've seen a lot of people, they want to collect a certain amount of rent, and then it's sitting for so many weeks or months, and then they start stressing out, and they're worried if they made a bad decision or a bad investment. So I think if you just place someone, a good quality tenant, and maybe you know you're not collecting the rent you hoped, but at least it just gives you this kind of, okay, now you can get settled in. Now you can start also learning how to be a landlord and all these other things, and it kind of just takes a lot off your plate.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it helps, right? Because you're probably targeting, right, the 70 to 90% occupancy, right, to get like the top echelon rent. You're probably going to be on an island on the opposite side of that bell curve of like you might get a chance, but it might sit vacant for a little bit. And I think too, a near recent example is that we had a tenant turnover in Pensacola or in the suburbs of Pensacola, and the market rent for 4 bedroom, 2 baths was 2,200 to 2,250, right? So it was in that range. So, if you were, I think if I was just starting out, I would be like, oh, like let's get 2,300, like let's really push the envelope. And then now sitting back, it's we were able to get that tenant to renew. And there was a part of me is like, it's rented at 2,150, so it's like $100 less than the top market rent, which is fine. A part of me was like, all right, do we keep the rent because they're a great quality tenant, or do we sort of like condition that there is a slight increase? So it was just a 1% increase. No one's moving for $20, $25. If they were going to move, they would have moved and they would have already made that decision when their lease was coming up for renewal. So that was kind of the mindset that we had there. Care to kind of get your guys' thoughts on that decision? Do we make a good one? Do we mess up? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's good to make slight incremental increases if they're a good tenant in place. That way, it's so much more expensive to have to put a new tenant in place just for an extra $100 a month, for example. So slight increases between 1 to 5% can still help you to like somewhat keep up with market trends, but not have a really good tenant be scared off.
All right, now everyone's trying to figure out what I know about her. So Ike is Sheets. What is QT or even Casey's? I have no idea what you're talking about, man. Um, but Trade Better has a great question. Let's see. How about, oh, do you guys consider this? How about closeness to bodies of water? Is better cash flow worth the higher risk potential of flooding? Hmm.
I think it depends on your exit strategy or your holding strategy if you're doing short-term rental versus long-term rental, the location itself, what amenities are there, and then also the type of property. So I think if you're going to be in a flood zone, being in a property or having a property that the first level is where like the bedrooms are and stuff is 100% risky. Like for New Jersey back in 2011, I believe it was, they had the Hurricane Sandy, and it wasn't talked about as much as like being a detriment because it was mostly everyone's second homes that got affected. But what occurred next was that all these homes were pretty much flooded, and then insurance came in and all the standards became that the houses have to be raised where the first floor is a garage. And a lot of those properties are like cash cows when it comes to short-term rentals. So I think just be mindful of location, property, and then if you're going to do short-term versus long-term, if the cash flow is worth it with the insurance costs.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think same thing. It comes back down to reserves too, right? And how much risk you can take on. So I think it's not probably personally. I probably wouldn't look into that as one of my first few properties or few deals. Taking on that risk, but it's something that maybe as you get a certain amount in your portfolio, and then you have a certain amount of cash flow coming in, then that might be something you want to look into. I mean, like you're saying, bigger returns, but a little bit more risk on the table. And now Janitor on Fire has stopped by, so I put his channel in there. His channel is growing quickly. I like his channel. He goes through all different post office across the country, but he's also kind of mean to me. But he says
That's why
I
you
don't
keep them
even
around.
yeah, but I don't even know. Okay, now here's another place I've never heard of. I live close to the largest convenience store in the world. What is this?
That's Bucky's,
Boosie's?
dude.
Bucky's?
That's Bucky's. Yeah, yeah. That is the Texas like cult.
Their bathrooms are cleaner than a surgical ward, and they have close to 200 gas pumps. Yeah, he's gonna put a video up. Oh, there's Mark Ham chiming in. Bucky's
It
is wild.
it's like going to an amusement park.
I'm
It's
gonna have to.
lines are packed. It's slammed like no matter what time of day. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, they're doing it right. Their branding, their marketing is money. It's good.
Have to check it out.
See, you never heard of it.
No, haven't.
See, I'm not the only one then. All right. Well, is any of these in Vegas? Like when we're in Vegas, are you gonna be able to see any of these places?
Oh, I don't think so. I think you're gonna get a Chevron, Exxon, and a Shell, maybe a BP. Dude, that's it.
Mm. There's still only one person here that on this live that wasn't in Vegas last year.
Still?
That
Dang.
was you. You
Okay.
didn't show up
Yeah.
last year. Ariel was. I didn't even know Ariel was there though. She didn't say hi, so kind of hurt
There's a
about
lot of
that.
people, but this year or next
Yeah.
year, yes.
But yeah, what about I think another big mistake that I see new investors, especially the ones that I talked to recently, is really focusing in on one market. Like they're still trying to find which is the best market, or they're trying to find which one has the most rent, and they're all over the place. They're looking at like 10. I like this market for this because there's tech going this way. Or I like this market because Airbnbs do well here, and they're all over the place. So do you guys see that, or is that how you guys were in the beginning also?
Yeah, in the beginning, I was a bit scattered in terms of like different markets, even though I knew it was going to be New Jersey because I was still commuting into the office and I wanted to do a house hack. So that changed things a bit. But I think most newbies, one of the biggest mistakes is not realizing that almost every market could work unless you're in New York City or like San Francisco. Um, so yes, you can find like the best market for cash flow, the best for burr strategies, but really like even a small market that's like 30 minutes away from you, there's probably a certain type of buy box that can still make you like really profitable. So I would just leave that with caution of always looking out of state, maybe also try to look in state and what's in a 2 hour radius.
Yeah. And kind of what the question here is stating is the strategy type as well, right? Like it really has to fit, your goals and your lifestyle and what are you willing to sacrifice, right? Because a lot of people, if they're married and they have kids, they might not be, you bring up the idea of house hack and having roommates, and it's like, is that really feasible? Like, are they willing to make that much sacrifice, for that strategy? And oftentimes that might not be realistic. So then it's like, okay, well, you could house hack in a multifamily. Are you willing to be, in close proximity to other people? And so it's like, I think again, like you go back to educate yourself on what are the different strategy types, what fits your lifestyle and your goals for both you and your family. And then what are you willing to sacrifice, right? Like you're sacrificing a lot of personal space when you're having roommates or you're sharing walls with other people that potential strangers. So lots of I guess lots of questions to kind of help filter out what exactly fits your lifestyle and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, great points. I think that's one thing too. Not only are people trying to find the best market, there's so many markets out there. Now they're trying to figure out which strategy they want to do, right? So they're like, I want to do the burr, I want to do short-term rental, I want to do a fix and flip. So I think also just honing in on what strategy you want to focus on. I mean, like we talk about, Burr is a little bit advanced strategy, but people do it from the beginning. But same thing, we always talk about like community and who you circle yourselves with. I think that's super important. Be around people that have done it that can help guide you along. And I think we always talk about it too is, I guess, in a sense, expect to fail somewhat in the beginning. You may not be able to get all your money out of the deal like a lot of people have been doing the past 4 or 5 years, right? Things, the market has changed, but it's also getting that experience. But if you go in it expecting to make mistakes, that's and that's kind of the approach that you want to take, knowing that you are going to do other deals down the road, right? Like this is not going to be a one and done situation. So I think that's a great point. Let's see. We had a question here. Oh, here. Curtis, thanks for stopping by, man. Glad you're up finally. He's on the West Coast, that's why. But between
Mm.
properties, do you get antsy for your next deal?
I could take this first. Yes, 100% get antsy for the next deal. Try to think of other methods of being able to get capital more quickly for the next one. But I do think it's important the first, whether it's 4 weeks to 12 weeks, kind of like what Mark said, of just kind of settling in, because usually that first couple of months of purchasing a new property is when the most like maintenance requests will come through from a tenant. So maybe just kind of settling yourself, get used to what you currently own, what are some of the pros and cons about it, and then going into your next deal after you have some of that confidence, I think is good.
Hey, hi, Nikki. Thanks for stopping by again.
Yeah, that one's interesting because I would say for for us, like for going from house hack to the next house hack to the next house hack, it's like our strategy is to try to get out of a house hack, right? Because it's like we felt like, okay, we've done this, living with, okay, I guess I was living with roommates. We have that multifamily, so it's like at some point though, we're trying to evolve from this sacrifice phase of the house hack, and then that would be the next advanced strategy. So for us, like our next deal, we're like antsy to try to do, it would be like a live-in flip, right? So it's like we're not doing the house hack, but it's just like a different strategy that involves, contract work, trying to see what construction or renovation loan we can qualify for, and then kind of going through that process of like again expecting to make some mistakes, expecting to fail, trying to like get as much information as we can, and then move forward with like a 70% knowledge base to make that decision of moving forward. So I would say it is a little bit like you have to temper maybe your excitement because you don't want to just race into a bad deal, right? Like that will just set you back all these years that you've tried to maybe accelerate your wealth building journey. So there's like an aggressive patience to it, I would say.
Did you just say wealth building journey because you saw Chester's
Dude,
name in the chat?
I'm all about the trying to do plugs, you know? I'm trying to shout them out here.
Yeah, well, I also put Curtis's channel in here, PE turned RE. So he's doing some cool stuff out there too. So go check him out and subscribe. But before I move into this next question, I also want to touch on quickly about I think a big issue too is tenant, or not tenant, but dealing with your property manager if you do use property management. Because sometimes people think like, oh, I got a property manager, now I don't have to do anything, and it's all just hands off, right? And they're not really following up with their property managers, or they're not really communicating on a maybe weekly or monthly basis just to stay up to date on their property. They just think, well, if I don't hear anything, then I don't have to do anything, right? And I see a lot of times then it becomes a bigger issue down the road, and the property manager reaches out, hey, we got this issue going on, your tenant hasn't been paying and whatnot, or so and so. And I see that, and now the new investors kind of scrambling, oh, what do I do? Like, this is all new to me, right? So I think that's one thing too, is even though if you do have property management, you still have to learn how to manage your property manager, right?
Great point.
And then, so this is right up Ariel's avenue. Can you share any resources or tools you use for market analysis?
She's like, I can show you them all.
Well, I could tease. I am doing a free webinar next Friday on this exact topic.
Oh, that's
But I
awesome.
thanks. Yeah, I could preface that never ever pay for any tool that shows market analysis because almost all of them use census data, which is free. So a lot of this research you could do on your own. So the tool I'll be showing in the webinar is a free tool that kind of combines across different sources. One of my favorites where you don't have to do any like Excel or it's kind of like already done is Redfin. So if you type in Redfin market insights or market trends, and then you put in your city, you'll see like one page view. I could actually share my screen. Might be a little bit easier.
Yes, I think it is market insights. It's fantastic. I think even some markets I feel like are more prone to being um, like Redfin's got even better data for sit markets. So for us in New Orleans, I know Redfin is a top premier data um, insights tool that's very accurate. So they are
Yeah,
nice.
they're really good. So I'll give a quick overview. Redfin, this is Kansas City. So I typed in Kansas City housing market Redfin, and it has insights on median sale price, home sold, median days on market, how competitive the market is. This one that I love, which is migration trends. So instead of looking at where people are moving to or moving from 2022, which is what census data is right now, they actually look at searches on Redfin to see where people, say in this case from New York, are searching to live. So we could see here that people are coming into Kansas City from all areas in the country. And then we could also see when they're moving away from Kansas City, it looks like they're pretty much staying like in this central area, which to me kind of signals that most people here are kind of selling their home at a premium and then just going a little bit more outwards from the city. So this is really good when it comes to looking at like employers, new development jobs. A lot of it you could just use ChatGPT. I used to sift through like Google News and articles that way, but now ChatGPT just kind of brings all that together in one single view. And if you did want to go into like a data-driven approach, Redfin does have their data center alongside Realtor and Zillow, which I think is this one. Oh, no, move this over.
Trade Better 99 said he signed up for the webinar.
Awesome. Yeah, you could download Redfin's housing data, which goes through like prices, cuts, and they have a lot of information which you could download and get like as geeky as you'd like with it. But again, all this data is free. Never pay for a tool that is trying to charge for this because they're just aggregating free data.
That's not really where I expected this to go, but
Well, there's
someone did
people
mention
out.
it, said coffee closers in the comment. Oh, hold on. How do I get back to
Yes,
whatever?
for coffee closers, we help with like
Oh,
actually deciding what neighborhoods to invest in rather than just market analysis.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if
you guys
anyone wants
take
to
like
check it
more
out
like
and try it out for
personalized.
free. Oh no, yeah, go. I just put the link to coffee closers in the chat. So if anyone wants to check it out try it out for free. But go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just kind of commenting. Like you said, like free market data, wide, broad strokes is like you could find most of that information online, but like real estate is just as it is nationwide. It is really neighborhood by zip code, by city, by town. So I think to get that more granular approach and more personalized insight is a good part of your due diligence for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. We got Ned stopping by, but he's stopping by from your channel, I think, Matt. But even
There's
though
another data analyst. That's
yeah,
the numbers guy right there.
even though he is, I'll promote his channel too. His channel's in the comments, so go check it out. But Late Start Wealth is here. So what's up, man? Yeah. So what's the webinar going to be all about, Ariel, next week?
Yeah, it's going to be showing off a free dashboard that I've created that basically takes all the data from Redfin, Realtor, Zillow, Census, and helps you find these markets best for like cash flow, seller finance deals, long term, and so on. And then from there, actually like a framework of how do you go through this, right? Because the question is like, how many things do I need to look at? How much time do I need to put into searching for a market before I can make a decision? So it's just going to go over like that framework or checklist of steps, so that anyone, whether they are tech focused or they're not, they can use that to go through how to find a market that's best for their strategy.
Love it. So go sign up, everyone. Go check it out. It's going to be great, I bet.
Who'd be the ideal audience that you're looking to cater this webinar to? Like
Yeah,
those just
so
starting out, or
for newbies or those probably within their first 10 deals, searching for possibility of a new market. Most of what I've created is mostly geared towards the working professional, someone who's limited on time and needs just like the quick steps that are the most important for them to follow. So I think that would be probably the main focus. And then possibly any wholesalers, but mostly investors.
awesome. Sounds good.
Any other mistakes that you guys want to cover or want to dig into, you think?
Yeah, I have
See,
a
what did we
question
talk
for you
about?
both.
Okay.
So a lot of people, newbies I work with, there's always the balance of like how much research do I do about a property before I ever go to tour it. So for you both, where do you think research should kind of stop before you actually go in person or have your agent tour? Like, do you think running comps fully should be before or it should be after?
Mm.
Let's see. I can probably kick this one off. I think, and you're referencing, you and your realtor are going to be going in, looking at the property, seeing the selling agent, kind of talking through that. That's what you're kind of referencing,
Yep.
right? I think that as much as your agent is there to kind of facilitate, I think you got to at least meet them halfway. And this is kind of what we did is we found comps like in that area, and we were like, hey, we want to see these 5 properties. So I think kind of already having a rough idea of research, and it just takes a lot of reps, but I think you'll get quicker and you'll get faster, and then your numbers will kind of get a little bit tighter on the kind of on that like spectrum of like what's reasonable, what's an actual comp. And I think when you have a handful of like rough ideas and you kind of know going in, I think then you can really start you know getting like reaching the final product, if you will. Like you've done enough of the training, and you're like the practice reps, and I think you're ready for like kind of game time, so to speak, by having that handful of comps in hand and kind of in your back pocket, so that way you have a rough idea of what to expect going into it. I don't know, Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, a lot of like Ariel and I talked when we chatted and had our interviews, but I wish I had coffee closers when I started. You kind of, it's the same thing, right? You kind of build your buy box and you understand your buy box, and then you can put that into these softwares that kind of has your buy box already in there. So that kind of speeds up the process. And that's what I would say. I would say, understand your buy box and just have these certain criteria to where it's a property that you're going to want to look further into, right? Doesn't mean you're going to make an offer on it. Doesn't mean you're actually going to purchase it, but have these certain things that you want, these kind of check mark points that you want to hit off. And it might only take a few minutes for you to really say, okay, this is something I want to look further into, right? And then that same thing, right? The coffee closers will send you an email. This property meets your criteria. And now you can be like, hey, I want my agent to kind of look further into this for me. So that's definitely the way I would approach it is, once you really understand kind of this buy box or your basic things that you're kind of looking for, that's going to help you kind of move quicker in a sense, right? It's like, okay, in a couple minutes, all right, this is what I want to know more information about. And then you're going to reach out to your agent and be, hey, dig deeper into this or find out more about this particular property, right? And you may not make an offer on it, but it at least fits these certain things where you can get the ball rolling and you can make some take some action on it. So that's how I would approach it. And definitely, these type of softwares, especially in the beginning, instead of having like 20 different tabs open and trying to figure out like, oh, I'm looking for this, these type of things make things a lot easier and more streamlined.
Mhm.
Wealth building journey, always coming up with some good questions. What's an I wish I knew problem you each dealt with that wouldn't have provided any indications beforehand, but is a valuable lesson learned in retrospect? So just to put this
Mhm.
out there, Chester is under contract right now with his first deal. So he
Mhm.
probably has a lot of things going through his mind. So let's not scare him too much. But what is something that we would look back on that maybe like, oh, it's a good lesson I could have learned?
Oh gosh. Is it a new construction or a
So he's going through a
older
turnkey
house?
company. He's going through a
Turnkey?
turnkey
Okay.
company in Detroit, I believe.
Okay. So I know the one that like initially comes to mind, I might have to think about this a little bit more, is property taxes on new development, because that that got us. And it got us to the point where we didn't really know how the county would assess the taxes on undeveloped land. So on escrow, our principal interest tax insurance, it was, let's just say one amount, and then a year after it's assessed, it's like significantly higher, and you're like, okay, well, how do I factor in that delta in when I'm analyzing and running my numbers? And so, you could attempt to maybe see if there's any comps in the same zip code, the same neighborhood, but nothing I think prepared us for how to really kind of gnat's ass like kind of a range of amounts, like what it could be. So like for example, it went from like 18, we had one as 18 like 80 to like 2400 was the next like um essentially note or mortgage payment, was because it was like we underpaid in taxes the first year, and then we're having to overpay in taxes to compensate for the first year. So like maybe the third year it's gonna like kind of meet in the middle, but it's I think we could have probably did analysis paralysis trying to figure out that number. So I think there's a balance of trying to really like hone in on the number versus being like, okay, I'm gonna take a plus or minus 10% and kind of move forward. So
I just want to say if you showed up on time, you would have heard all of this discussed already.
well,
But
I'm
but thank you
I'm
for
I'm
the audience
catering.
that
I'm
popped in late.
catering to the
Yes.
audience, to the pop.
Yes.
Exactly. Come on now. I'm here for them. The people that they're working jobs. They gotta come in during lunch.
No, yeah, definitely. Property taxes can get you. And another one that I wish I knew was when I first rented a property, the photos that I put were just like off of my iPhone, which most of the comparable rentals were like that. Then when I rented out my first property in Florida, I was the only one taking photos on an iPhone that was like not edited. So my property is still in the market for a little bit longer than what I expected. Um, so going forward, I either use, I think it's just like Photos, the tool in Mac, or sometimes I've actually sent off the photos that I've taken with my phone to like one of my friends who are like really good at software editing and stuff like that to make them really pop. But if you don't have either of those, then really just look at the photos in the market. If they look to be more pristine, then just get a photographer. It'll be worth it in the long run.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing is maybe telling my agent, being more specific with my agent, is as far as I said, of course, I want good properties, cash flowing properties, and all these things, but really be more specific. Like, hey, the street has to be this way, or the parking situation, and really be a little more detailed in what I wanted him to look for. So, even though he did a great job, finding properties and getting me base hits, I could have been more specific on my buy box or what I was looking for. But Curtis has a great, so PE turned RE. On my recent purchase, I submitted an offer before seeing the property. I did research before, so when I saw the price, I knew it was a deal. Yep.
Mm.
So
So
that's all
Mark,
the work you put in beforehand. What's up?
yeah, I got another for you. I texted Jess, so she gave me another one. Local regulations if you were to go to the short-term rental route, they're not set in stone. And how do we learn this? We learned this the hard way. So local regulations for New Orleans changed a year after we were operating Airbnb. And so being able to, I think it goes back to on the underwriting side, underwrite the deal as a long-term rental. If your numbers are good there, then you can be willing to stretch that risk matrix a little bit by doing a short-term rental, and you can get more cash flow, but again, a little bit more risky, a little bit more seasonal. So it kind of builds in a lot of the things we talked about, building the cash reserves, underwriting. Things can change, so being able to pivot and stay adaptable, I think, will serve you well as you are on your, I'm gonna do it again, wealth building journey. Got you, man.
Seems like I should get Jess on here. Seems
Yeah,
like she's
I'm telling
in control of everything.
dude, I'm telling you, I'm just the guy that actually just shows up. So we're gonna get her. We're gonna get her going.
And Ned made a comment, but I know he can't see my reply because he's from your channel. But he said making fun of his 73 search tabs, and I just replied to I'm making because he had a spreadsheet for his dating. So I just told him making fun of his 100 tab spreadsheet for his dating app.
That's good.
Oh, what Landlord Odyssey's here? What's up, Radeon? I put your channel in there. You're doing some cool stuff out there, so go check him out also. But yeah, so wealth building journey. So he's in the process of his closing, but his appraisal came back 10K below the agreed upon purchase price. Has that ever happened to you folks?
Not 10K. It's been always like a little bit over or in line.
What about you, Matt?
I think the reason why it came in for us above was because we closed in 2020, 2021, and 2022. I bet now if we were to close on a property, and the appraisal would probably come in a little bit lower. So I think it's something that you really can't control that much. Is just the market that you're in, buyers, sellers market, what's going on, a lot of external factors that you might not be able to have control of.
Yeah. So I think it really comes back to kind of what we're talking about knowing your numbers, knowing your buy box. And sometimes like we're talking about it, you can't control the appraisal. It just depends who's doing it. There could be a new appraiser, and he's really being tight on his numbers or whatnot, or whatever comps he's using. But I would use that to your advantage, right? And it came in below, so that gives you some bargaining. You can take that to the table and talk to the seller and say, hey, I can't qualify for financing, if the purchase price is at this because of the appraisal, but I would leverage that into getting some credits or lowering the purchase price. But as long as you ran your numbers and you know what you're getting, right, it doesn't really matter what the appraisal comes in at, right? If your numbers make sense, it's a good property, then I wouldn't use that coming in 10K below as stopping you from doing this deal. I would use it to leverage it and try to get a better deal out of it. So that's the way I would approach it.
Yeah, and I think the other benefit of investing in real estate is, just because the appraisal came in 10K below, that only matters. Were you trying to sell in 3 months? Were you trying to sell next week? Right? Like if your horizon or timeline is 5+ years, 10+ years on hold, then it's a nice to know, but not a need to know. That's a make it or break it, in my opinion, right? It just depends on that strategy piece and what's your holding timeline.
So what advice, for like someone like Chester, who's on the verge of closing his first deal, what maybe could you give him in the first maybe 2-3 months after closing? Like what should he be prepared for? What could he expect maybe?
Is Chester, are you self-managing or property manager?
I believe he's going to go the property manager route in the beginning.
So I would think if that's the case, is maybe create more frequent touch points with that property manager early on. So, and you could just be upfront and be like, hey, these are my expectations. This is going to be my first time going through this process. I'd like to stay a little bit more involved in these first 3 months than I might be in the next 6 months, for example. So, would you be open to, uh, um, maybe a weekly meetup just to kind of see how the progress is going, and then we could switch it to monthly, and then I don't know, maybe you kind of gauge it from there. Okay, so if it's from a distance, then maybe kind of have that schedule, have that expectation up front to just get a finger on the pulse, especially if you're going to be doing from a distance. And I'm sure if you express those concerns with that property manager, they're going to be a little bit more willing and understanding of your situation and where you're coming from.
I
Yeah, I
think the
think that's
biggest
great
oh,
advice.
I think the biggest thing is don't freak out when you get your first maintenance request or repair. I think that's the number. People get so shocked when they get that first one, and it could be the smallest thing, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, like what am I gonna do?" And just it's just part of the process. It's part of being a landlord, and realize that typically it's not as bad as it sounds. Maintenance request you get, you got to realize your tenant a lot of times, for them it's a big thing. They're trying to deal with it, but a lot of times it just it just takes stepping back a little bit and really just, okay, let's just figure it out. There's a solution to this, and don't stress out too much about it. Detroit is about 1,000 miles from DC. Yeah. I think Chester, I think it'll be good for you to actually be far away from it. If not, you'd be there every day. That's what I think.
Also, be prepared for the text messages rolling in. Can I buy your property?
Yeah. That
Once
means
you
you
show
got a
up,
good property, yeah?
once you show up on the list of out-of-state investor, um, it's like maybe 2 wholesalers a week that will reach out through text or call.
Chester would talk to them for like 3 hours, I bet, though. So they may not call him after that.
So that could bode in your favor, though. You're like, oh man, like we got to stop calling this address. You're gonna be on the phone for half the day.
The Chester's going to start calling them after.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So what else? So has it been smooth sailing now that everyone has about, 5, 6 years in their journey? Has it just been super easy now, everything?
No, but I'd say like at least technology has gotten better. So like Zillow is what I use for renting out a property, just for like the listing and the lease creation. And from when I used it for the first time like 4 years ago, it's night and day to what it is today. Their customer service still sucks, but it is free. So like today, I rented out a property about a month ago, and now they have like all these pre-canned answers. So I can set up like if someone asks me, "Can I see the property? Is this time available? Or does my credit score like fit into your criteria?" I can just send like the pre-canned stuff right away, all through my phone on the Zillow Rental Manager app, which you couldn't do a couple of years ago. So I think one of the benefits is having these supplemental tools.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely come a long way in terms of making the user interface and the streamlined process a lot easier for self-managing professionals and those that want to maybe be a little bit more involved in the beginning. So it gives you that flexibility, which is nice.
Ned said, I've made a lot of money off those random calls. Oh, he talks to every last phone call on his properties.
See, so
Hmm.
it could be in your benefit. You never know, right? So you might maybe you do have the answer.
Yeah.
What I will say is don't when you close, don't um, or I guess expect a lot of mail that you can refinance from a scam. That's not going to work. You don't have a lot of built-in equity yet, so don't don't try to just refinance or lots of mail will be thrown away. That's not relevant to you because your information is now part of the local records, and that's how they target your people. So
Yeah. And I don't really, I think, don't have to worry too much about the people that are in the chat, because I think everyone is kind of in the same communities and around the same people. But I think a big thing too is just sometimes you did make a mistake, maybe in a sense, or don't be afraid to pivot, or you know, sometimes maybe you have to take a loss in a sense. Maybe it's just a property that didn't work out for you. It was a deal that didn't work out, and it happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it can happen, and just realize that it's not the end of the world. And sometimes you do pivot so that you can make better moves down the road, right? Sometimes you don't want to hold on to something that's just going to drain you, and it's just going to hold you back in a sense. So just keep that in mind and realize that we've all made mistakes. I mean, all of us talking here, we've all made mistakes. There's always something that we would probably do different, but just realize that sometimes you do have to pivot, maybe. But that's also why you need these sounding boards where you can bounce ideas off of, or see if someone else has gone through that situation. Um, yeah. So yeah, anything else you guys want to chat about? Anything else in the markets, or anything else going on in your guys' lives, or on the Vegas event coming up? Did you guys, or buy your Matt? You bought your tickets yet?
It might just be me. So I didn't buy
Mm,
2. Yeah. So
it's
Jess will be in
Valentine's Day
school.
weekend.
Yeah, Jess will be in school, so we're unsure of the class schedule for me to get out there. And I mean, I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun. We'll try to make it work. So
I
to
know you
be
don't dare
determined.
missing the second one.
Yeah, that's it. I know I won't hear the end of it. That's how my intro will be every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? What's going on? You think a Fed rate cut in September? Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I think
really
it's
no economist, but from what the experts in the market are pricing in, I mean, it's hard to beat. What is it? It's at 100%,
Yeah.
at least a quarter in September.
Yeah.
So
We'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting I mean, are they saying what, 50 basis points maybe is what they're talking about? We'll
ooh,
see.
I don't know. Let's see.
We'll see how it affects the
Use the Fed
markets.
monitor tool. That's what I do from investing.com. Fed monitor tool. Ooh, 50% is at 62, and quarter point is at 38%. So they are lots of high probability for half a point. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not as in tune or in the economy or educated to help articulate the implications of a half basis point. So I'll stay in my lane, and we'll leave it as leave it there.
Late start wealth. Even though I'm house hacking, I plan to get a PO box. I'm assuming he meant to type for all mail. You guys have thoughts on that?
yeah, I think it's useful.
When I think of PO box, I think of another mistake that maybe as a first time investor, I thought that I would have to get all my properties in LLCs, right? Like before you even start marketing a deal. No, that is not the case. So don't think you need to have your entity structure ironclad defense, if you will.
Yeah,
There's
mine's
enough
not
layers of
ironclad.
protections. Yeah, there's enough layers of protections.
Mine has
Don't need to
holes
do it.
everywhere in it. That's the hard part. I mean, you can have it set up, and it's just like trying to keep it ironclad, like you're saying, and especially in the beginning, right? You're trying to figure out where this money got to go and who pays
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
And by now, I've commingled funds so many times. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's be honest. Your beginning $200 cash flow, you don't need those offshore bank accounts yet. Like
yeah,
let's build it up in phases.
yeah. So even like the PO box question, I have like the virtual mailboxes, so all my mail gets sent there. But even that, it hasn't. It's like the service has gone down quite a bit. Like I don't get the messages anymore that, oh, you have new mail. And actually, I gotta call them and follow up on that. And that's not even talking about it. But even like bills, I get utility bills, and it's like it's like it's like 3 weeks past the due date. I'm like, what the hell? But so good thing I still get the electronic mail, so I know that these bills are due. But on the servicing side, it's scanned in, and it's like it's already like 3 weeks past the due date. So yeah, I don't know why I'm paying for it anymore. I think I got
Yeah, you have to
sucked
follow
into it.
up on that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you really do. See what's going on over there.
Yeah.
But
Nope.
one thing I'm looking forward to, you were saying like market trends, things like that, is seeing how like the NAR settlement is
Mm,
going to like, because now I think the effect is supposed to be mid-August. So
yes.
seeing how agents change their structure is
Mhm.
interesting. There's also a lot of companies that are now like startups helping people do for sale by owner in a more seamless way. So I think like that whole like realm is going to see a lot of change, which is interesting.
Yeah. I
That's a good
think
point.
there's going to be a lot of just like real estate attorneys that might get a lot of business
Ooh.
from it to just write up contracts and you're not paying a big fee for it anymore. So I see that in the works. But I think I haven't, even though I have my license, I haven't paid too much attention to it. But I think there's going to be even an issue with like teams, like sharing commission now. So even like, so yeah, I think there's going to be an issue with team formation. So there might be seeing less teams built, like agents coming together working as a team because of the commission structure now. So that might be something, because I think,
Hmm.
even like on the buying side, right, I don't know if you can sign a contract with the team. You might only be able to sign a contract with the specific agent. So I don't know how that's going to work, because you can't technically show a property anymore without having a buyer's
Without
agreement.
having that signed.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
unless you're going to just fill it out every time. But yeah, interesting stuff coming along. But yeah, anything else you guys want? Anything you guys want to talk about? Anything else? Doesn't have to be real estate. What's going on? How's your where's your other property, Ariel? The one that's not in the country, or where's it at again?
And Playa del Carmen. So
Yeah.
hopefully that will be ready
Hmm.
in the fall. Then I'll be
Oh,
renting it out as an Airbnb, and hopefully vacationing there a couple of times out of the year.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that idea of the lifestyle asset. I think that's
and
awesome.
then Matt, you guys just transitioned one of your properties, right? Midterm? No, what did you guys do? I saw you post.
We converted from long term to midterm up here. So it's kind of like so in the triplex we live in one unit, and it's mirrored image shotgun double in the other unit, and then below is the Airbnb. So I think just for a little bit more transient options, we converted to a fully furnished medium term rental because we had a lot of extra furniture from Florida, which we converted that from, it was a rent by the room, and that's now taken over by full property management to do long-term rentals. So that was the goal, was to just transition from the self-managing in Florida when I moved there, shoot, probably over a year ago now, to having just a property manager manage those. So those are, it's a much better feeling, because that's a good thing about doing it yourself, is then you realize what you don't want to do, and I don't want to manage properties. So that was gives me good clarity. So that was you know fortunate to do it, but I look back and I'm thinking, okay, now I know what I do not want to do in the future.
Is this your first dabble in the midterm space?
It it will be. We are doing a combination of Airbnb 30-day, like advertising 30-day plus on the calendar, Furnish Finder, and then a Zillow on as well. We've had luck with Airbnb. So we have a couple kind of, I would say we've had a 60-day stay and maybe like a 79-day stay, and then a couple reserved after the new year. And so that's kind of the route we're going. So we're still seeing what works, what fits, what type of marketing is really hits in this area. So those three avenues for now. So we'll see.
Yeah, good for you. That's huge. And I just started doing short-term rental end of last year, and I had a booking for like 45 days, and I was like, wow, this is like this is the way to go if you can, the medium-term rental where it's that sweet spot of like 30 to 90 days.
Yeah. It's a lot more hands-on turnover setting up the system in the beginning. But if you're able to kind of get it set up, obviously less turnover than a short-term rental, less cleaning. But I think it's we get really good, at least for now. We've gotten really lucky with the like we've had a nursing physician couple that they work in the city, but they live northern Louisiana, so they just use that as like kind of like, hey, we're going into the city to work for the week, and then they leave for the weekend, which was like perfect for us. And then a couple like professional students that are doing internships. So it's so far the niche is rewarding, I guess, the transition to medium term rental, but it's a little too early to tell if it was the right decision. So
Yeah, I just interviewed some guys doing midterm rentals for their business, and they love it. They says they like the clientele so much because people are usually going there for work or they're traveling for a job, and they're not, you don't not really worrying about partying, and so they have higher, I guess, their clientele is better, and it's like you said, it's not as much turnover, less wear and tear on the furniture. So yeah, they,
yeah.
they love it.
Yeah, if you get something in writing also where the company is paying for the housing, I think they're also be willing to pay for that top dollar because it's fitting within their, housing um, allowance, if you will, that the company is providing. So they're happy, we're happy, win-win situation. So that's ideally you want that. That's how that one will go.
All right, so this was another great episode. I'll be back tomorrow with some firefighters that I met who are doing real estate. We're gonna go over kind of how we balance the fire department and investing. And then actually Friday, I'm gonna be back with the midterm rental guys. They want to do a live, so I'll be back with them on Friday. But yeah, before we wrap things up, maybe what would be the advice you would give a new investor starting today? What kind of your final parting words would you give them?
My final parting words would be it's important to do your research, due diligence, but also you need to make offers. That's where you're really going to learn. So give yourself a little bit of room to try to analyze new deals or markets. When it comes to a certain mark of maybe 30 to 90 days, when you're like, all right, I've seen this kind of property before, I already know what the numbers are going to align with. It's time to start making offers and take action. And yes, I'm still in Tampa.
Okay, Esther, you heard that? Ariel's still in Tampa. She'll be in Vegas too. So Esther, you better show up this year.
Yes.
Dang, doing
Um,
the recruiting. Love it.
yeah.
Love it.
And then Nikki, I'll bring this question up on Friday too for the midterm people that will be on. But if you guys, does midterm rental work with one room, Matt? What do you think?
It would depend on how the space is configured. So if you have a separate entryway, or is it within a like co-living, I guess is how you describe it. So I think it just depends on the configuration, what you are going to be advertising it for, and then clarifying through that. So bad answer, but it depends. I guess it could work, but
Well, I know the guys that I spoke with, they do it. I think it's in Jersey, their company, but most of theirs are. I think they said studios or one bedroom. So I know you might be talking just like like a separate room for your property.
mm,
But their properties mainly are like studios or one bedrooms. I guess it can work for these smaller space. It doesn't have to be like a huge house or anything.
yeah.
But yeah, so Esther,
Nice.
Esther says she will be in Tampa next Saturday. Have you met Esther before, Ariel? Or
No, I haven't, but would love to. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me via email.
Oh,
Maybe we could set something up to sync.
yeah, reach out, sign up for her webinar, sign up for the webinar for next week, and yeah, we'll get you folks back on another week, and we'll do this again. This was fun.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thanks
Yeah,
everyone for
thanks
stopping
again.
by. Okay.